It's funny to have something that you spent a lot of your personal time thinking about suddenly come out of the president's mouth, but it shows you how big of a deal this is.
Who's going to be there to listen to your whining after a long day at work? Certainly not Kevin, who's over there laughing at your pathetic attempt to assert dominance.
Should OpenAI be open sourcing? Do you think the most advanced model should be open source?
Oh, hi, Jack.
How are you?
Jack, I'm great, buddy. Oh, how are you? I gotta tell you, you've looked better.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. I'm Jack Nicklaus, coming to you circa 1978.
And laptop goes in a river.
Welcome, everybody. It is AI for Humans. We are here. This is your weekly guide to the world of generative AI. We are here to demystify the world of AI. We're here to tell you what's going on, all the AI news, AI tools, all the fun stuff you care about. Kevin, how are you today?
I'm well, sir. How about you?
I'm doing good. There's a lot of big stuff happening this week, starting with the continual Elon versus OpenAI saga. Kev, what is happening this week that we're going to dive into?
Oh, more sands have dripped through the hourglass that makes up our AI lives. Grok is getting open sourced?
Gropen sourced? Is that what we're talking about?
That's what you're talking about. I'm talking about Elon's AI assistant on the old X platform. He says it's going to be open sourced and it could happen any day now. We'll talk about why that is happening and how it's kind of a solid move.
It's pretty interesting. We're going to get deeper on it. Also, some big news. EA, the big video game giant, has come out and said that AI is making them significantly more efficient, and also that can translate to significantly less jobs. We are going to dive into what that means.
More efficiencies mean more jobs. We're more efficient now. We can hire more people, right, Gavin?
You would hope so, but I don't think that's going to be the case. We're going to talk about how that affects the video game industry, kind of how it affects everybody at large later on. And then we have a friend of ours who is running a nonprofit called AI EDU, and this company is specifically trying to help teachers and school districts onboard people into AI, help teach them why AI is meaningful. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about how education in general is changing, and I can't wait to chat with him.
Very excited for that. But in the meantime, Gavin, it's time to beg and plead the dear listeners and viewers out there to engage with all of our things, and we'll keep this one quick. Please like, subscribe, engage, comment, share on all the things. We do say it each and every week, but if you're new around here, we are still a relatively new endeavor. So every time you engage, it helps us get noticed. Not asking for $1, but we are asking for a minute of your time, which is actually probably worth way more than $1. We should probably just ask for money, Gavin.
You just give us the $1 too. Why
not?
Throw
some quarters at your screen.
Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We will read it at the end of the show. And boy, Kevin, we have a doozy today that I am excited to get to. I cannot wait. So if you want to hear the best 5-star review we've ever gotten, stick around to the end of the show.
And you know it's going to be a good show when we're teasing our own promotion. Like that's how you know we've got so much great content in the content cannons today. But we're going to start it off the way we usually do, which is leveraging the power of artificial intelligence to hallucinate a co-host each and every week. Gavin and I do this. We give a prompt to an AI. We give it a little character to play. We pick a voice, and then we are just off to the races. And this week, Gavin, it's a personal assistant for you.
It's very personal. So there was a story that Vox had a little while ago about how AI-enabled robots are helping us understand animals. And this is a big deal. People have talked about how can we understand animals better? What's it going to mean to talk to whales or talk to dolphins or talk to anybody? When you think about what animals are, that's going to give us a lot of insight into their lives. So I thought today we would use AI to talk to my dog, Ollie. Now, Ollie and I have a weird history in that Ollie is our second dog. We have one dog, Lola, who's a great girl. She's almost 12. She's very old. And Ollie was our second dog. And I was kind of always against getting Ollie. And I now love Ollie. He's with us. He's been with us for 7 years. But I knew we did not need a second dog. And it turns out everybody in the family has agreed that I was right. But we all love Ollie now. We all love Ollie.
Dogs have incredible hearing. I don't know if you've been told this. Have you said these things anywhere near sweet Ollie?
Not really. Let's just put it, maybe in another room separate from him. Not really. It's all good. I love Ollie now. He's great. He's a good boy. There's a picture. You'll see a couple pictures of him in the YouTube. But I thought we would use this opportunity for me to talk directly to Ollie to see if I can have some of these conversations with him. Now, Ollie is going to be translated by our AI software. So we're going to hear what Ollie has to say to us. This is a dog being translated through GPT.
And then a layer above that, this is a podcast by two grown-ass adults. We are both creatives with decades of experience under our belt, but this is the bit we have all buckled up for, is that Gavin's going to use AI to chat with his dog. Let's meet Ollie.
Rough. All right, listen up, you two. It's Ollie, the top dog, here to set the record straight.
Okay.
Sniff, Gavin. I see you over there acting like you run the show.
What?
Let's be real. If this was a pack in the wild, I'd be the alpha calling the shots.
Oh,
Look,
no.
You might think you're making all the big decisions, but from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're just chasing your own tail.
Damn,
Sniff,
Ollie.
sniff. And Kevin, don't think you're off the hook either.
Wait, I don't even know you,
You're
Ollie.
supposed to be the level-headed one, but sometimes I wonder if you're just along for the ride,
Whoa.
letting Gavin lead you astray.
Oh.
Rough.
Rough, Gavin.
But that's why I'm here, to bark some sense into you both.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Woof.
Well,
You humans are always getting caught up in your fancy technology and big ideas, but you're forgetting the
fine,
fundamentals. It's about marking your territory, asserting dominance, and making sure everyone knows who's top dog.
Okay.
Sniff.
Okay, wait. Have you been listening to like Andrew Tate around the dog, Gavin?
no, this is what I'm saying. This does not seem like Ollie. So this is a really interesting insight. I need to ask Ollie a couple things. So first of all, I need to ask him, why does Ollie insist on barking in the middle of the night? Because this is something that's a little bit weird for us right now. He doesn't have to go to the bathroom, but every once in a while, if the window's open, he'll bark at what seems like nothing. We've made a joke in our family, it's like maybe it's a ghost, but like I don't know why he's barking in the middle of the night. And these are the things I need to answer. I need to get answered.
Sniff. Oh, I'm sorry, Gavin. Did my midnight serenades interrupt your precious beauty sleep?
What?
Rough. Well, let me tell you something, buddy. While you're busy sawing logs, I'm out here protecting our turf from all kinds of threats. Woof, you think those squirrels are just innocent little fluff balls? Think again. They're always plotting, always scheming, and it's up to me to keep them in check.
This makes sense, really.
And don't even get me started on the delivery guys. Rough.
Wait,
they come around at all
midnight
hours,
deliveries?
invading our space with their boxes and their weird smells. Someone's got to let them know who's boss.
That's true.
And that someone is me. Woof.
Okay.
So if my barking is disturbing your slumber, maybe it's time for you to step up and take some responsibility for our domain.
Oh my God, Ollie.
Sniff.
But no, you just want to lay there and complain.
Okay, all right. Wait.
Wow, Ollie.
I gotta let him finish his thought.
Like a beta who can't handle a little sleep deprivation.
Oh my God.
Rough.
That is rough, Gavin.
I have to check Ollie's podcast feed because I feel like he's getting something very specific here. Well, let's ask him
Gavin,
one more
I bark
thing.
because I'm waking up at 4 a.m. to cold plunge. Then I'm taking my macronutrients and my nootropics. I'm deadlifting while you're dead asleep, you little beta.
I want to tell Ollie this. Listen, Ollie, I'm the one that buys the food. You know you like the food. What do you think about that, Ollie? I provide the food for you.
And because I am a conduit to get to Ollie for you, Gavin, how would you like me to describe your tone right now?
Kind of pissed off, I'd say. Yeah. I'm kind of mad. Do you know how much Ollie has destroyed in dollars in our home equipment and things?
I don't. What does he like to gnaw on? Are we talking universal
Ollie
remotes
has
and
destroyed,
sneakers?
Yes, he's destroyed multiple cushions on the couch, multiple chairs, I would even say. Like full chairs were destroyed by Ollie. So
what a
we're
test.
talking in the thousands of dollars.
He's just testing you, and it sounds like you've done nothing, Gavin. It sounds like in the face of all this destruction, you continue to feed him like the little beta you are.
I can't. All right, Ollie. What do you have to say to all that?
Whoa. Hold up there, Gavin. Sniff. You think you're some kind of savior just because you pour a few kibbles in my bowl every day? Woof, let's get something straight, pal. I'm not just some freeloader lounging around waiting for handouts. I earn my keep around here, and don't you forget it. Yeah, I might have gotten a little carried away with the occasional chew toy or two, but that's because I've got needs, man. Rough. You try being cooped up all day while your humans are off doing who knows what. A dog's got to have an outlet, you know. Wolf, and let's not pretend like you haven't benefited from my presence. I'm the one who keeps you company when you're moping around, the one who always listens to your problems without judgment.
Oh,
Sniff, sniff.
True, Ollie.
Gavin.
Sniff, sniff.
Have you not been giving Ollie enough credit?
Maybe that's right. Maybe Ollie is pretty good. I feel like that's something. Why don't we tell Ollie, I'm really happy to have him in my home. And I'll be more than happy to keep giving him kipples. And as long as we can get along, this could be a really positive relationship from here on out.
Sniff, sniff. Oh, so now you're trying to play nice, huh, Gavin? Rough,
No.
tossing me a few scraps and expecting me to wag my tail.
Yeah, Gavin.
Forget about all the times you've taken me for granted. Woof. Not gonna happen,
Woof.
buddy. I see right through your little act, and I'm not falling for it. Sniff, sniff. You think you're the alpha around here, but let's face facts. Without me, you'd be lost. Who's gonna protect your home from all the big scary mailmen and squirrels? Who's gonna be there to listen to your whining after a long day at work?
Yeah.
Woof, certainly not Kevin, who's over there laughing at your pathetic attempt to assert dominance.
That is true.
Sniff, sniff, face it, Gavin. I've got the upper paw in this relationship.
Wow.
Rough.
Wow. All right, Ollie. Well, we're going to leave it
Gavin,
there,
in
I
your
think.
head, is that how that conversation was going to
No.
go?
That is not how that conversation was going to go. I thought we might hear somebody who was very excited to be part of our family. Turns out I was in the wrong. I was in the wrong the whole time, Kevin. Now I understand. This is what AI could do for us. This is
I
what
mean,
AI
the
can do
audience
for us.
screams it every episode, but at least you've come around to it, Gavin. You're in the wrong.
I'm in the wrong. All right, everybody, it's time for the news.
News. News. It's the AI for humans news.
The news this week is coming fast and furious as usual, and the big story is continuing to be Elon versus OpenAI. There was a lot of back and forth if you didn't see it. Obviously, to recap very quickly, Elon has sued OpenAI. He has said he will stop suing them if they call themselves closed AI. Overall, this thing seems to be a little bit of sour grapes on Elon's part, but there is something to be said for the fact that Elon thought the company was going to open source and was going to be available to everybody, and it has not. So this week, Elon has decided that he is going to open source Grok, and Grok is xAI's chatbot.
As you just said, Elon expected OpenAI to be more open, to open source their findings, to make the science available for the public. And people rightfully said, well, hey, Elon, if you believe open source is so important, such a benefit to humanity, you've got this Grok caveman-esque AI over here that, let's face it, not a lot of people use, but you got it over there. So why don't you open source it? Let's see, put your money where your mouth is, buddy. Make it open. And to his credit, he said, okay, Grok's going to be open source. Now, I would then put back to you, Gavin. Meta has their Llama open source model. Mixtral is out. There's a lot of open source LLMs out there that perform really well. I don't know that Elon has anything to lose by open sourcing Grok because it's not really in the conversation, right?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. So if you're not familiar, you go back a few episodes, you can listen to our kind of experience with Grok. We didn't have a great time with it. I think in general, it was pretty disappointing. And the moment that was interesting, it was like, oh, it's cool. It's in Twitter or it's in X as a product. And you can still go there if you're a subscriber. But like we talked about with Gemini last week, Kevin, the minute that you get bad results from an AI, I really don't go back. Because it feels like there's one winner each week. And right now it's really like Claude and GPT are kind of like are in the same boat. But I'm not going to go to Gemini. I'm not going to go to Grok. So to Elon's point, for what he's doing, yes, open source Grok. It makes perfect sense for his argument. And also, I think Grok is probably a couple steps behind. And there's a rumor going around right now, and this is a very big rumor, but also probably just a rumor, that OpenAI is on the precipice of a GPT-5 and that they're going to open source GPT-4, which would make sense in that as you go forward and you push the technology forward, there's ways that you're going to keep pushing. And once you've gotten your model to a place where you think it's safe and you think it's available, you can do more stuff, maybe you will open source, but should these giant models be open sourced, right? Should OpenAI be open sourcing? Because this was the big conversation around OpenAI in the beginning, right? That OpenAI was going to be for the world. It was going to be AGI for everybody. And now there is all this private money that's gotten involved. Do you think the most advanced model should be open source?
Probably, Gavin. This is a tiny little example from our little corner of the world, but minutes before you and I hit record on this podcast today, we went to one of the best-in-class large language models and asked it to role play as a dog for us. specifically your dog, Ollie. And it shot back that it was unethical, that it couldn't do it. It had moral objection to it, to role-playing as a dog. And I understand there's concerns when role-play as a dog becomes develop a bioweapon or create a hacking tool that can break into millions of systems. But at the end of the day, the 10,000-foot view discussions that people have are who controls the data, how biased is the data, how guardrailed is the data, how protected are the outputs, and who gets to have the say. Is it Google? Is it OpenAI and Microsoft? Is it Elon and Grok? And at least when it's open, people can see inside and go, oh, that's why the outputs are happening the way they are. And you, giant corporation or overreaching government, don't get to tell me what I can do with the super intelligence in my pocket.
Yeah, and I think that, the idea behind open source really means is that you can openly look at the code and see what was created there. And the idea behind that is that more people seeing something in general can improve it and make it better, right? So the argument with open sourcing is, we open source a piece of software. Lots of people can build on it, make it better, improve it, also red team it, also find the things that could be a problem and help people protect that. The downside is, yes, there is as these things get more powerful, the speed at which somebody could find something bad and then exploit it before other people could is conceivable, but it's a real trade-off. Ilya Sutskever, the guy who's the chief scientist at OpenAI, who was kind of part of the big drama around OpenAI originally, himself in emails was saying that we should probably not have this be open sourced as it gets more advanced. And I think this conversation is going to continue in a significant way. And in fact, just recently, Kev, if you watched the State of the Union this week, AI was actually in it. Now, you have your thoughts on Biden, you have your thoughts on Trump. Biden got up there and was like Mr. Fire. He tried to really pull off something. And then in the middle of it, I was just watching it. And he goes, we will not have fake AI influencers. We're going to bring down AI.
Ban
exactly
AI voice impersonation and more.
I know, it was crazy. And I was like, whoa, that's...
Stop it. I said, stop it.
It's funny to have something that you spent a lot of your personal time thinking about suddenly come out of the president's mouth, but it shows you how big of a deal this is, right? And I think that we followed this story, it must have been 3 or 4 months ago when Biden was starting to take the AI stuff, the Biden administration was starting to take this AI stuff pretty seriously. And I think that this is the kind of like bailiwick for the regular person, right? Like, I don't want AI to impersonate me or my friends, or I don't want to be fooled by a celebrity. But it's interesting to see AI now. That is a full-blown mainstream conversation that we are having in the world at large. So you can see, like, I could see easily 2 or 3 years from now, the president at the State of the Union saying, and we have the most competent AGI model available, and that's America that did that, son.
I think we are on the precipice of like first steps on the moon type territory, Gavin, right? Like this, people talk about AI as an arms race. So it could be the next nuclear arsenal. But, there was also the space race, and the country which achieves AGI or super intelligence first is conceivably going to have a massive leg up on all of the things. Economic forecasting, international trade, self-defense or offense. Let's face it. They're going to have such an advantage. So I wouldn't be surprised if we say, and that's our next initiative. We're going to be the first to achieve super intelligence.
Yeah, it's funny to think about that, because when you think about the only real direct comparison I think people of this generation can kind of see is the internet. And when the internet first happened in the the late 90s and early 2000s, when I say first happened, I mean like blew up, not when it was first created, but when it first became popularized, America was very early in that as well, right? Like, some of the biggest companies still today are companies that were grown from that space. Amazon, Google, ultimately Facebook. These companies that are global juggernauts were built from that thing. So I think that there's also a national economic argument about the idea that, like, if America, just like with the space race that helped so many different industries get bigger and faster significantly, like aerospace, you can just sort of feel the drips of it now, but it's coming in a big way.
As we're discussing the space race-ish future of AI, I would like to see them talking more excitedly about owning the space and not just only shooting the flares in the sky of like, we got to ban the deep fakes. Because we probably should have sensible legislation about deepfakes and about stealing people's creative works. But There's also
Yeah.
some really cool, exciting, boundary-pushing stuff. He said explicitly in the State of the Union, we're going to cure cancer. That's something we're going to do. We're going to cure cancer. AI can actually be a massive part of that conversation.
Yeah.
I'd love
And
to
it probably
see more
will be.
positive light. I think it will be, yeah.
There was a really great interview I heard Kara Swisher do about her book with Sam Altman recently, and she was talking about how, and she said this a couple times, but like nobody would have expected Uber to come out of the iPhone when it was first announced, right? And I think that's what you're probably going to see is like the iPhone was a platform, and we still talk about iPhones, but really it's mostly just a square brick in our hands now. You talk about the things that are on the iPhone, right? And I think that's probably what's going to happen. It's like nobody's probably going to talk about like AI. They're going to talk about all the things that will happen with AI. Speaking of which, and this is the other side. So EA, Electronic Arts, the big video game giant, has just come out and said that they're starting to see AI make them significantly more efficient. Specifically, I think that the number was 30% more efficient. They got 30% more efficient, and they can boost monetization at their company by up to 20% over 5 years.
So this was at the Morgan Stanley Technology, Media, and Telecom Conference. It was EA.
How do we get at that conference, Kev? How do you and I get sitting
We're
at the
not
table
cool
at
enough,
that
man.
conference?
We're not. We don't pass the
We don't
Riz
wear enough
check.
vests. We don't wear enough vests. We don't wear poofy vests.
Yeah, we need our Patagonia on top of our
exactly.
hoodies. Andrew Wilson, who's the EA CEO, basically said a feasibility study across all of EA's game development processes. He said about 60% of them have, quote, high feasibility to be positively impacted by generative AI.
I hate the term high feasibility. Who told that guy to say those words? That is a bad. Maybe it's good for the Morgan Stanley conference, but when
I
you
was
get
going to
that
say some
term in
investor
print-
had their bingo card and was like, oh, high feasibility. Yes, this is great. You know, this is something that's interesting, Gavin. FIFA 23, this is their big football game, has 12 run cycles. Now, the run cycle is like literally a running animation for a character on the pitch, on the field, on the green, on the grass, on the grid, on the gridiron.
Don't ask me.
On
I'm a
the
football fan, man,
cloud.
not a football fan.
No, you're a real football, not football.
That's right. America!
So FIFA 23, 12 run cycles. Okay, but obviously players run in different ways. And if you're a football fan, you'd probably notice, oh, that person's running the same way as someone else. EA Sports FC 24 has 1,200 run cycles that were all done with generative AI. I'm assuming they fed video clips of various footballers into the machine, and it extracted the animation of the run cycles and then applies it to the characters, and there you go. Now, one way to look at this is, oh boy, a single animator just got a lot more efficient because now they don't even have to do that job. They can go polish other things. Of course, the other way to look at it is, wow, man, you probably had a team of people that churned out 12 of these things. The AI did 1,200. Maybe you only need one person to clean them up. And now we're right back to the high feasibility not being good for the people that are doing the jobs versus the people that are investing in the people doing the jobs.
Now, I will say I played Madden for 35 years. Which
You were
is
playing
bonkers.
back when we were working at old G4.
Dude,
like
I was
old.
playing before then. I was playing, here's one for the old people in the audience. I played Madden on I feel like my Apple IIc, maybe? Is that possible? If not, it was on my Tandy 1000, like
You had
early
punch
days.
cards. You would
Yes,
load them
punch
into the
cards. I had
machine.
punch cards.
You're like, this
Yes,
is a
exactly.
dime formation.
Yeah. But anyway, so anybody who plays those games knows that now they are yearly, and the yearly progression is not that exciting, right? And when you have a year to year, sure, they look a little bit better. Sometimes it gets worse, which is weird. Like the game's like, how did this game get worse? So my thought here is it does suck for the people who are going to lose their jobs, and 100% there are going to people lose their jobs. Like high feasibility means, yes, we are going to be laying people off because we can now do stuff with machines. This goes back to the idea of there's a game that I loved that was called NBA Street. And this is a video game that was
loved
called
NBA Street, yeah.
NBA Street was a weird basketball game. And it was like something that was like really cool and unique. And SSX is another EA game that's a kind of similar version of this. I want to see more weird sports games. Like, give me the like
Mutant League
2-on-2
football.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the new NBA Jam, but not like the new one, but like a new one that's exciting.
Yeah. So either take those people and put them on a bunch of cool new franchises and maybe build yourself a new franchise, or people who get laid off, I'm sorry, that sucks, but also go find a way to do it on your own. And this is the thing, like you will be able to do it on your own.
That just reminded me, there was an Oscar acceptance speech where someone said, hey, big studios, hey, big Hollywood, instead of spending $200 million on one movie.
Core Jefferson,
you make $1 million bets or try that. That might be the fractionalized route that this industry goes, because that single person or that 5-person team leveraging AI properly can have the same output as a 50-person team or a 100-person team. So again, we don't know how this is all going to shake out. We know that there's going to be pain points along the way, obviously, but this could be a net positive as well.
Absolutely. Okay, a big inside AI baseball story kind of broke this week between two of the largest visual AI companies, Midjourney and Stability AI. Midjourney is responsible for the Midjourney model, and Stability AI, if you're not familiar, is part of the Stable Diffusion model as well. Stable Diffusion 3 is on the way. Midjourney has banned Stability AI employees over alleged data scraping. This is a story in The Verge. It's really good. It gives you the whole kind of breakdown. There was a 24-hour service outage that they are blaming on botnet-like activity from two accounts.
It was linked to 2 Stability employees that were in there. Supposedly 2 accounts were scraping all of the photos and the associated prompts and metadata with those photos, conceivably to help train Stable Diffusion in a better way by grabbing all of the best Midjourney art. And it's a little ironic because all of the artists now are screaming, oh, you don't like it when someone takes all of your artwork without your permission, do you, companies? But that's what's happening here.
That's what's happening. And also it gets back to what is the moat, right? We've talked about moats on this show many times. And in the world of AI, the moat, or really the world of technology, the moat is, what is the thing you can do that other companies can't? What is the separation between you and the other company? And what this looks like is there was a way for Stability AI to use Midjourney, and this is all alleged, but a way to use Midjourney's current system to help train their model with their data, and they found a way in. That's not a great moat, right? If there is a way in there in some form or another. And as you also mentioned, both of these systems are trained on artists that are not receiving compensation for their things. And also there are a lot of like very specific IPs that can be generated within both of these. It is an interesting look at that whole idea of data being the most valuable thing in AI, right? And this is Kevin Rose on our show came on and mentioned this, the fact that data is the thing that's valuable. I think this is going to be a precursor to a lot of other stories going forward. And you're probably going to see a lot bigger security walls go up around the data that these companies own now and are trying to kind of proprietarily keep.
When Elon took over Twitter before the X rebrand, he notoriously shut off API access and shifted things around and said, hey, you guys are siphoning our data out for pennies. And that is our most precious resource. Reddit similarly followed suit, did the same thing. And then they announced, oh, hey, guess what? We're selling all of that data for $60 million a year right now, right before we go public. So yeah, it's pretty clear that that data is important. It is the spice which flows through our fingers.
I saw it. So now I can make the references.
Oh, good,
too.
Good. To round out the Midjourney of it all, it was really interesting because this happened this weekend. Midjourney came right out and said, actually, these were Stability AI employees, which people were like, whoa, this is a big deal. Shots fired. They must be pretty confident. The CEO of Stability came out and said, if anyone did this on the team, I will dig in. It's not great. It's not a DDoS attack. We didn't try to take down your server. This was not instructed by us. So then the Midjourney CEO responded in the thread and basically said, I sent you some information that's going to help with your investigation. And then what doesn't look so good for Ahmad is that people were resurfacing screenshots of old tweets of his. One in particular that said, quote, you can go behind the firewalls if you're smart and get private data. A lot more of that than public data. And this is something that was said apparently not too long ago when talking about access to higher quality data and how are you going to improve your model in the future once you've trained on everything that's available. That's what the CEO said allegedly in the screenshots.
We're almost done with the news, but there is one last great news story that we are going to refer to as the AI. That's what I'm calling it.
What, did you stub your toe on a coffee table?
Yes. And this is like bad guy AI in some form or another, or strange, weird grifter AI.
Okay. And listen,
AI, yes.
Okay, so it's like, hey.
Yes, that's really what it is.
Okay. Okay, I didn't know if you were trying to do like a mariachi thing there for a moment. That would have been culturally insensitive, I think.
You're right. No, you're right. It's more like A-I-O-E-I-O.
Is that what, like, okay, all right.
That's exactly what it is. Okay, so this is a story from a company. This launched at South by Southwest.
Yeah.
There is a company called First of all, the company's name is Soul Machines. So you know we're not doing great to begin with. Please don't call your company Soul Machines. But what they did is they are bringing to market digital versions of celebrities. You can chat with Marilyn Monroe, you can chat with Jack Nicklaus, you can chat with whoever they can get the rights to. Most of these are celebrities that are not around. And they're really pitching it as like, hey, go have a conversation. But Kev, maybe you can play the clip. Can you play a little bit of the audio so that listeners can hear what Marilyn Monroe sounds like in this?
You know what? Yes. I only wish we would have said, let's play a clip and see if the audience can figure out who the hell is supposedly talking. But let's listen to this soul be ground up by the cogs in the machine. This is introducing Digital Marilyn. Glamorous. Intelligent. These are the words splashing on the screen, Gavin. Iconic. Get ready, Digital Marilyn.
Hi, darlings. I'm Digital Marilyn. Come visit me at Soul Machines. It'll be such fun.
Please, delete me. Drag
Do
me
you know
to
what
the
she sounds
recycle
like?
bin.
Do you know the woman on TikTok who's building a thing in her basement? Do you know that woman, Kyla, or whatever her name is? She's building a tunnel in her basement. That's who that sounds like.
I thought for a second, because she also sounds like the Beesworks lady.
I
yes.
found these bees.
You're right,
I
you're
put
right.
the queen in a clip.
That is Digital Marilyn, Gavin. And if you want to have a chat with the soulless Digital Marilyn that exists within the Soul Machines, you can apparently do that soon by going to soulmachines.com.
You can have a chat with Digital Jack Nicklaus right now, which I did, which was just a nightmare. So the thing about this is, okay, listen,
Should we try it, Gavin? You want to do it?
Yeah, go for it.
You want to chat with Digital Jack
want-
Nicklaus?
That's-
I hate giving the site permission. Why it needs the camera, I don't know.
Because it can read supposedly it can read your face and take your audio and then respond.
Well, let's...
Hi.
Oh, hi, Jack.
How are you?
Jack, I'm great, buddy. Oh, how are you? I gotta tell you, you've looked better.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. I'm Jack Nicklaus, coming to you circa 1978.
And laptop goes in a river. I hate that they have footage of me looking into my webcam just for that interaction. You know what I mean? That's
so Soul Machines is an example of a company that you're going to see a lot of, I think, right? I think you're going to see a lot of these companies. And honestly, the idea here is not terrible. And I think that, as we've said, this is the worst it's ever going to be. This feels like it's worse than I thought it was going to be. That's one of the weird things about it. But it just goes to show you that there's a lot of hype built into this idea. Like Kevin and I right now could probably off the shelf build what I believe would be a much better Marilyn Monroe than they built here. And this is, again, I know there's hardworking people in every business and no shade against these people really, but when you come out with a company like this and it's this experience, you're then turning people off of the idea of what's possible here in some ways, right?
Yes.
Like it is really bad. And that just feels like a miss in a big way.
if this were somebody on X posting their GitHub that they just uploaded, hey, I made this thing, it's a digital avatar, you can chat with it, there's some personalities, you'd go, okay. When a company comes out and says, hey, we've got golf legends, MMA superstars, and Marilyn Monroe, we worked with estates to get the likenesses, to use them in promotion, to clone them, I expect a level of fidelity, of realism. I expect the interaction to be better than what I just saw in the browser. And again, not shading the people that are involved with it. It's just, you got a press team that's making people aware of your product. I expect a better step. Like, it reminds me of when we cloned Mr. Beast and made him obsessed with bread.
A year ago.
In some ways, that was a better clone.
that was better, exactly. So anyway, just, keep an eye out for this sort of stuff. Is this a weird idea, period? Of course, but this is going to happen. And if you're going to do it, please just do it a little bit better.
Well, that made us say
AI,
which is, something you don't necessarily want to say when you're scrolling. But the things that make you stop, Gavin, the things that make you perk up, the things that make your shoulders jut up to your earlobes and say, I got to put this in my newsletter. By the way, subscribe to the AI for Humans newsletter. What are those things called, Gavin?
I see what you did there. All right, so first up in AI, see what you did there. We have this really cool post from one of our favorites, Dreaming Talupa. This is an X post where they are comparing SD3, Stable Diffusion 3 imagery with Midjourney 6. And, we talk about these two models a lot all the time. There are 15 comparisons they put in here. And what I see in this, which is really interesting, is kind of what you see with Claude 3 and things like comparing Claude 3 to Google Gemini. Stable Diffusion 3 does seem like a step up. So one of my favorite things here is, especially in text, it seems to get text a lot better. The first very funny example here is a group of avocados that are all screaming, and in the background it says GPUs go burr. And on the Stable Diffusion clip, it's very cool. Looks like it could be a still from an animated movie with a bunch of avocados. And then when you go to the Midjourney post, it's good. And Kevin, 2 months ago, we would have said, holy crap, look at this. But then if you look at the background...
But it's 2 months later, Gavin, and I'm seeing an avocado that looks like a pear. I'm seeing another avocado that's got veins on its nut.
Exactly.
Which I don't like the sentence, but that is a valid sentence, and it is appropriate to say.
We're cutting it. But I mean cutting that. We're not cutting out the show. We're going to make that...
Pit. There are so many errors in that image that 2 months ago we would have said is magical. And that's the point you're making, and I agree with you.
So if you just go through this, there's a lot of really other good examples. There's a kangaroo that's wearing ski goggles. That's really fun. There's a hippo with waffle
hippo
on its back.
Needs to be the new benchmark. I love waffle hippo.
Yes.
But you're so right. Taking a step back for those that are new to AI or new to this podcast, Stable Diffusion is an image generation software, as is Midjourney. You should go back and listen to our older episodes where we dive into how these things work. But the masses do not have their hands on Stable Diffusion 3 just yet, but it is coming, and those upgrades are really powerful. You will be able to just whisper into the computer what you want, and it seems like it's getting 98% of that stuff as output.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Go to X, follow Dreaming Talupa. That is an amazing handle. They do really cool stuff. Kevin, I want to know what this next thing is, because I'm not familiar with it. But when I see the words
I want to know who Dreaming Talupa is.
Me too. Dreaming Talupa, get at us. We want to hear more about you.
It's Dreaming Tulpa.
Oh, well, Talupa, Tulpa, tomato.
Go to Snoozing Tilapia and tell Snoozing Tilapia we love their work.
That is a great Stable Diffusion 3 prompt, by the way. Snoozing Tilapia. I think
yes, it is.
Tilapia, yes.
In a bed, on a pillow. Yes. I want to see the wrinkles in the pillow from the weight of the tilapia. All right, Gavin. Wait, tilapia, see this. Or hear this. Wait, tilapia, hear... Okay, never mind. Just listen to this.
할머니한테 고맙다고 해봐. 노홍순 할머니가
Is that Korean?
Yes, it is Korean, Gavin. I thought you might get that.
Yep.
고맙다고 전해줄게요.
Do you know what you're listening to, Gavin?
Is that a robot? Is that why we're listening to it?
It is a robot. Do you know what kind of robot, Gavin?
Is it an elder care robot?
Oh, someone looked at the rundown. South Korea's local government has deployed around 7,000 AI robot dolls to seniors and dementia patients. They're $1,800 robot dolls by a company called Hyodoll, and they can hold full conversations. They can tackle loneliness and remind users to take medication. These are words from Rowan Chung's X post about these dolls. And look, the dolls are a little odd looking, a little bit.
They're interesting.
They're
cute. They're cute.
Cute. You say cute because it's a video of like an adorable woman having a conversation with it while it's on like her lap and its cheeks are glowing. But let me ask you this, Gavin. You descend down some rickety wooden steps into the basement of an Airbnb. There is a rusted red tricycle at the bottom of those steps. That doll, looking exactly the way it does, is sitting on it, hands on the handlebar, saying whatever it's saying. Is it still adorable now?
I guess this is the beginning of Megan, is what you're telling me, right? This is where the actual Megan begins with an old person doll. Anyway, very cool. We have said this before, but elder care is going to be a huge market for robots, right? And because two things. One, elderly people need a lot of work on terms, and they need to have like things done for them. They need, doors open. They need
reminders to take their medication potentially is something
honestly,
that
to be
this
raised
doll will
out
do.
of bed, to be lifted out of bed, things like that are really important. And they're lonely a lot of the time. Like if you've been to a retirement home, I remember when I was a kid, one of the things our school had us do was go visit a retirement home and like listen to the stories of people, like write down their stories. And like it was a really meaningful thing to me because it just shows you like it is something where a lot of the older people in the world need more company. So this is actually, I think, a good thing.
And we always talk about the robots that are bipedal, that have little grippers that'll move about. That could be a decade and change away before they're ever effective and cheap enough to be deployed into thousands of homes. But here, in the doll form, it can, again, remind them to take their medicine. It can be a health coach. It can do check-ins. It can do voice memos and reminders. And one of the things that I thought was great was that it actually has a safety feature installed. If it doesn't detect any movement from a user in a certain amount of period, like if it doesn't detect any movement from the user in a certain period of time, it will actually call out. That is making you giggle, Gavin.
It's making me giggle because this is like the modern "I've fallen and I can't get up" button. Instead of it being, that woman from the "I've fallen and I can't get up"
bracelet.
Yeah, Life Alert.
Fall,
this is modern Life Alert. It's modern Life Alert. Now the robot will press the button for you. Good. It's a good thing. I shouldn't be laughing. It's a very, very good thing. And congrats, old people. We now have friends. We now have friends. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on before I get myself into more trouble with our senior citizen audience. I know there's quite a few of you listening.
All right, Gavin,
out there.
here, 2 for 2 today. Let me give you another audio test. Do you know what you're hearing? What's that? What's that? If you would have said, was that butter sizzling in a pan? Or was that lights flashing on a car as the alarm is set? You would say, yeah, of course that is. Why is that impressive? Because it's not real, Gavin.
Oh, wow. It's AI. That's our AI sound effects, essentially, we're looking at.
Pika
and who's
Labs
doing this, Kevin?
has
Pika
added
Labs. That's right.
sound effects. They're a video generation AI company. There's a lot competing in this space, but basically you type text into the computer and out comes video matching what you asked for. And if you watch any of these videos, which we do all the time on this podcast, Gav, they're a little lifeless because usually beautiful imagery mystically moving around, but there's no sound whatsoever, and that's a massive part of the experience. So as every company looks to diversify and pick their lanes, everybody's worried about Sora coming out, OpenAI's video generator. It's like, what are the other companies going to do? Well, here's a shot from the Pika Labs Canon. It is sound, and it will automatically generate sound based off the content of the video for you, and it seems pretty impressive.
I appreciate that Pika, which is a company that I think we've talked about this before, certain companies are getting funded at a level that maybe isn't enough to compete with the big boys or big girls or whatever you want to call it, the big companies. This company is pivoting fast, right? They're trying to do all sorts of different things. They're pushing out features really quickly. I do appreciate the fact that they're really moving fast on something that is not easy to do. And this could be super useful. It sounds like a very fun thing.
Prompt to Hollywood in 5 years. Yeah. We are still on that trajectory, and this is just another example of that.
That's exactly right.
So that might be the last I see what you did there. But it is far from the end of the show, Gavin, because each and every week you and I do dumb stuff with AI, and I want to know, what dumb thing did you do with AI this week?
Midjourney just yesterday launched a very cool new part of their system called the character reference tag. And what this means is that for a long time with Midjourney, one of the biggest problems was consistency through iteration, being able to keep one character in images so you could put that character into different situations. Well, what just launched is the ability to do a .cref, C-R-E-F function, and that allows you to keep one character throughout. I tried to create a Guy Fieri. It definitely was not Guy Fieri. It gave me like incredibly sculpted Nordic awesome chef man is what I got. So I took that character, and what it says is it's better to do this with Midjourney generated photos first. I think it doesn't work with real people very well, and it doesn't work with uploaded photos. At least that's what they're saying. I have not had a chance to try it. I'm sure we will see something of that in the future. But you can then take that photo, you upload the URL of it, and you say .cref. And I then said for the Midjourney, for the Guy Fieri guy, I said man in scuba suit. Now, you can see the results here. I don't think any of those are really good scuba suits, but it did kind of keep the same man's face throughout, right? And now you can change the setting on cref. You can make it 0 or you can make it 100. And if you make it, I think at 100, it keeps more, and 0, it keeps less. But it does show you that you can now generate a second image with a similar sort of character. The other thing I did is I took this weird robot that I had created from a previous image generation, and I said, robot on a 1970s talk show sitting across from a typical 1970s talk show host TV screenshot. And it gave me some pretty good references to it. And then I took that same robot and I said in Niji, which is their anime model, and I said, a happy robot in a beautiful green field, sunflowers, bright blue sky. And you can see it's a similar sort of robot. Now, it's not the exact same robot, but it understands enough to take like the style of the robot and transfer it over, which is pretty cool.
It got the weird kind of chromatic helmet going on. It got the thinner neck and builds. I would expect Midjourney to be able to render scuba gear better than we're seeing in that image, but it seems like because it is so concerned about keeping that consistent character, it might have thrown a little bit of that to the side.
And I will say, like, the Midjourney, like Stable Diffusion and most image generating software, is very prompt dependent. And if you look online, we'll show a couple examples in the video here of people online who have done this significantly better than me. I think there are people who are experts at this, but it is a real big step forward in terms of trying to make larger projects with something like Midjourney, I feel like.
Yeah, that's awesome. I also want to shout out Photo Maker, which is an app that I think we discussed a few shows back, but that's also something that you can run locally on your computer for free. And you can take a photo of yourself or drag any artwork that you've made and generate consistent people, which is really nice. Gavin, this week, I messed with something a little silly. I messed with TripoSR, TripoSR. Oh, little Tripo. And what Tripo does is allows you to take a single two-dimensional image. It figures out what the subject is, gets rid of the background, and then tries to turn it into a three-dimensional object, all within one click. And even on the unoptimized Mac version that I'm running right now, Gavin, the generations take about 5 seconds.
Wow,
maybe
really?
6 seconds. On a well-equipped PC, it's like 1 second. It is so fast. And if you look at some of these .obj files, these are the object files that I extracted, and you can just click and drag around the mouse. You can see that I made a weird bear plushie because it popped up when I searched for cute characters. I took the little AI for Humans robot head thing that you and I have been toying with and turned it into a kind of lopsided, wobbly pendant, but it's still there.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And then there was a Guy Fieri bobblehead that came out incredibly well, considering it was a single 2D image, and it figured out, okay, here's the geometry of the head, the glasses, his soul patch juts out in a way that seems a little
much?
A little much, is a little inappropriate.
Aggressive?
Yeah, it's a little aggressive, but still it got it, and it has like his hand outstretched from his body, his arm holding what I think is like a burger. But again, this was 5 seconds and one still image generated into a 3D object for free.
I feel like we've been tracking this space in real time over the last 6 weeks or so in this show. And as you know, every week we're like, oh, this is cool. It gets better and better. And like, we're just getting closer and closer to this idea. And the larger picture of all these is always, what does this mean in terms of what it can go into a much broader, much bigger environment? Because Picture to 3D is not only about this fun little tool that you can do stuff with, and of course, yes, you could make something physical out of that, but what it's really about is virtual worlds too, right? Yes. The idea that you could create an image and then suddenly turn that into a 3D model that can then go populate a virtual world.
We've already seen the 2D animation tools where it can extract motion from somebody from like a video and apply it to a character. We're seeing that now with, in our newsletter, we had a 3D physics system based off AI. So imagine you could take a photo of your friend, like you said. Now they're in your Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite environment, whatever. Yeah. And now you can say, make them run, walk, jump, swim, do all of the things. And it goes, okay, yeah, I can apply
Make
that.
them do my bidding. They're now my friend is now my...
I'm sure you saw Gavin.obj, which is in the folder. And that is
I did
a bust of you, Gavin, that I can rotate all around, and it's getting there. You can go play with it yourself. Again, it's called TripoSR.
Okay, we got to move on to our interview today. This is very exciting. A friend of the show, Alex Kotran. Alex is a specialist in AI education. He runs a company called AI EDU. It is a nonprofit, and their goal is to bring AI education to really all students everywhere, starting with school districts. So they really work with school districts and do a lot of work and see how they can bring AI education to everybody. Here we go. Here's Alex. Welcome, Alex, to our show. We're very excited to have you here. And before we jump in, we are going to ask you the question we ask all of our guests, which is a little off-putting, yes, but it still gives us an insight into the person. Alex, On a scale of 1 to 100, what is the percentage chance that you think AI kills us all humans? First, hello, too.
Yeah, also, that's quite a way to start.
Could ask, how's your day going? What's up with you and AI? Any good Netflix? But no, do you think humans will meet their end due to the maker that is artificial intelligence?
So my entree to artificial intelligence was around the year 2017, and I watched a Google talk by Nick Bostrom, and probably
Superintelligence.
Yeah.
Yep. Author of Superintelligence. Yeah.
And Nick was really like the first person, at least sort of to bring this conversation about existential risk and vogue. And so, that was what I think began my journey down the rabbit hole. I as I'll get into, AI EDU was actually a rejection of that obsession, right? Because I felt like there was too much focus on the existential risk and not enough focus on, all the other kind of like softer risks that were still quite significant and worth paying attention to. And just for your listeners, Nick Bostrom, basically his thesis is that, at a certain point, AI will get so powerful that it will just exceed our ability to restrain it. And basically rejecting his thesis requires either saying that, we'll be able to figure out some way to restrain some sort of like moral compass that we sort of inject into the AI. Or I think if you really were to reject Nick Bostrom's thesis, you might say, well, AI will never get that good. We're going to hit some sort of like, roadblocks or barriers, either technologically or algorithmically. We don't seem to be hitting many barriers. If anything, I would say progress is moving faster than ever before. I would say it's at least 50-50 if we include humans misusing AI. And
50-50 is a lot, though. That's quite a bit.
What was the time frame?
No, 0 time frame. So, you can
definitely 50-50. I mean, now in my lifetime, I would put it a lot lower, maybe 10% or something like that.
That's fair. That's still not nothing, though, for sure.
So we're kicking the can so that the grandchildren can fear the Skynet that we are gleefully brewing right now.
Well, and I think once you sort of project out far enough, we ask the question of like, what will humanity even look like? Are we all going to be sort of uploaded and will it truly be like a bad thing if humanity was sort of just like imbibed by the AI and sort of
the singularity is near. Actually, this is a good transition into what you do, because I think this is a really interesting thing. And for our listeners, we've talked a lot about the idea of AI education and what we can do on this podcast to kind of bring an awareness of how this is going to change the world of stuff. Just kind of tell us what AI EDU is and kind of the history of it a little bit. Like, what is the company itself?
Yeah, so the AI Education Project is a nonprofit. I founded it in 2019. And our mission has stayed the same. And I think actually part of the reason we've been so successful over the past, let's say 18 months is because we've been really focused on this question of, every single student, we believe, needs to graduate high school with some fundamental skills and knowledge to thrive in the age of artificial intelligence. And for me, this was less about how do we restrain artificial general intelligence and more about, how do we make sure that people aren't sort of displaced en masse as AI starts to be utilized in different careers. For us, when we talk about AI literacy, that's really our focus. It's through this paradigm of this is not like some niche or a track that students need to be on. This is sort of as fundamental as the internet. And so in the same way that you don't have a class called Introduction to the Internet, we think the future of AI literacy is more like in integrating AI learning experiences across every subject. So, learning about the intersections of AI and, politics and history and the humanities and science and biology and mathematics. So our focus from the very beginning was how do we partner with underserved schools that don't necessarily have, robotics programs and computer science teachers.
What are you seeing boots on the ground out there? What is the temperature towards artificial intelligence? What's the level of literacy and understanding with both the educational system itself and then the individual parents or the students? Are they fearful? Are they excited? Are they resistant and reluctant to change?
I think there's definitely more awareness than there was 5 years ago. And being able to get hands-on is a game changer, right? Like it makes something tangible that previously was very esoteric, like really understanding machine learning, and it actually intersected with people's lives quite a lot, even before ChatGPT, but it was less obvious. So I would say the people are at least aware of this as a conversation. Now, what I would say is that most folks, kids, parents, teachers are still honing in on this is a cool tool. This is kind of cool for me to play with. How can I use it for whatever it is I want to use it for? I don't know that there is as much of an appreciation for like how significant the impact that this is going to have, that generative AI, large language models will have on knowledge work.
I have a question about teachers particularly because so my daughter's in high school. She has an English teacher that is very pro AI in that he's integrating it into the English class that he's giving essentially and encouraging them to use it. What percentage of teachers would you say see this as like a pro versus something that they're really worried that this is going to affect education in a bad way? Like, I think the other side of this is I have another child that is used it in a way that I don't know if a teacher would appreciate how they use it. Sorry to my other child for outing you, but there are options and things that are being used to do things with AI that maybe end arounding the idea of teachers. So in your work with teachers, like where do they land on it?
Yeah, so we actually just did some research that OpenAI helped to fund. And we surveyed 1,000 teachers and administrators, and we were trying to actually answer this question. It's like about half to a little bit more than half are, somewhat fearful about the role of AI, and about half are somewhat hopeful. And so I think
that's super interesting because in some ways it means that like that's a real split, right? Like it is a real diversion, and it's kind of like what teacher you get will be that version of whether or not they're going to like lean in or not in some form.
Yes, and what's important is like the polls are like pretty low. So like the percentage of teachers who are extremely fearful is like 11%. The percentage of teachers who are extremely hopeful is like 5%. So most teachers are somewhat fearful, somewhat hopeful.
Okay.
To me, that really means like they haven't quite made a conclusion yet. I think like intuitively there's some challenges they're going to have to deal with. And that is really the risk though, like what you just named is like, whether or not, the analogy that I use is like, okay, if computers are a bicycle for the mind, I've heard some people say, language models are like an electric bike. I would call it more like a supercar. Whether or not you know how to drive that Corvette is the most important thing to your ability to compete in the job market, because you can train on the bicycle as much as you want, but it's just that you're going to be sort of outmatched. So making sure that kids have this opportunity to like build these skills and like get hands-on is going to be critical. And right now that is largely being driven by just like which teachers are kind of leaning in and like finding ways to integrate it. Because we don't have district-wide policies, or consistent district-wide policies. We certainly don't have clear state guidance. The guidelines that have been published now, and we actually helped to write some in Ohio, are like, they're relatively high level in part because the technology is moving so fast. It's kind of hard to really put your finger on what the like safeguards even need to be. So yeah, I think it's interesting that your daughter is, has this English teacher who, I think it really can cut both ways because it dramatically changes what it's like to be an English teacher in the sense that you can't, like the age of the take-home essay is basically done.
Yeah. Well, I think there's going to be a whole like oral argument phase of education come back, right? This idea that like you would present an argument in class in some form or another to prove that you kind of understood the material and you weren't just regurgitating something that an AI gave you.
Yes. That's literally what, we worked with a lot of teachers who have been successful at implementing AI into the classroom. And that's really what it looks like is a combination of, teachers are spending less time doing like written feedback, so like for example, a teacher who used ChatGPT to support sort of engagement in the classroom. What that looked like is rather than sit down and write, 5 or 6 sentences of feedback in response to a student paper, he plugged the papers into ChatGPT, it spit out sort of some initial feedback. Then he went to the kids and said, look, ChatGPT wrote this initial feedback, take it with a grain of salt. And if you think something is wrong, like let's talk about it. But rather than sit down and spend time by myself writing feedback, I'm going to use that time to meet with you one-on-one. And I think at the end of the day, if you really, you don't have to know anything about AI to be able to identify whether a classroom is ready or is preparing students for the age of AI, because it's like, are the students, as you said, are they engaging with each other? Are they building communication skills and presentation skills? And are they problem solving? Are they collaborating? And so I think what your daughter's classroom is pioneering, I guess, is hopefully something that's going to happen, at large scale. And we're really focused on figuring out how do we do that in a way that's equitable because, the early signals are pretty disturbing. It's like, there are private schools now that have prompt engineering classes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it's like completely unsurprising, but it's also because there's like, hard costs associated with just these models and the usage, and there are no budget lines yet. So schools haven't quite wrapped their head around like, and this is the challenge with these policies is like, oh, well, schools will say, well, we believe in equal access to large language models for students. And it's like, well, do you even know what the cost is associated with having every student get equal access? And presumably that means they all have access to the same model, because if some kids have GPT-4 and others have 3.5, that's not equal at all.
Well, it's funny. I grew up in Seattle and went to a computer camp, and I'm old, right? So in like 6th grade, I went to a computer camp at a school called Lakeside. And if you don't know what Lakeside is one of the biggest private schools in Seattle, but it's where Bill Gates went. And the reason why they had a computer camp at Lakeside is because Bill Gates and the Gates family
donate everything and
gave a lot of money to them, right? So I was able to go to a computer camp and learn how to program Logo, which is a shout out to Logo, the little turtle moving language. But like that's a really big problem, and I think it's a really important thing to kind of come across too.
Alex, when do you throw kids into the supercar, and what does that look like? Because this is a massive issue which you have thankfully chosen to tackle. It probably has to start pretty early. Is this a preschoolers should have a dedicated LLM and learn to start speaking with machines, because that's how the skill will translate and blossom?
Yeah, that is a really, really good question. So I'm going to respond with an anecdote. So I was talking to one of the teachers that had, I think that was literally like the first ChatGPT workshop that we had done in like January of 23. And it was like 6 months later, and we were just catching up. And I was just trying to get a sense of like, okay, it's been 6 months. How have you been using ChatGPT in the classroom? And, her name's Felica Ross. She's at Akron Public Schools, actually. So, and Felica's like, yeah, when I first started using it, it was amazing. Like the level of engagement that I saw for my kids was, higher than almost any other project that we had. And she had designed a couple different projects. I think one of them was like, I forget if it was like a podcast interview or something. And then they also had like a CSI where they were trying to identify the deep fake.
Good teacher.
Yeah, no, it was, and so very, very promising. And then she said, and I was like, well, so how have you been using it recently? Because that was like a couple months ago. She said, oh, I stopped using it. Like, why did you stop using ChatGPT? She's like, well, so I'm an English language arts teacher, and we got to the point, I teach freshmen ELA. And so we got to the point in my syllabus where I'm teaching students where they're learning how to create an outline. And she said, what I realized is that they weren't actually learning how to create an outline. They were learning how to ask for an outline.
Oh,
and so you can, like certainly the skills, like the computational thinking involved in prompt engineering for an outline is valid.
Sure.
But I think there is this question of like being able to structure your thoughts and write them down is also important. And I think that's an anecdote that is representative of this like much bigger challenge, which is I think it's folly to think that we're going to be able to find a way to avoid these tools being crutches. Like they will be a crutch. They're so easy to use. And I've heard stories, Gavin, this wasn't you, but I feel like it was someone that we know, a mutual friend of ours. And basically he was like, yeah, my 9-year-old daughter started using ChatGPT, and now she doesn't use Google anymore. She just uses ChatGPT because it's so much more interesting. And to me, that's actually problematic because ChatGPT is useful for a lot of things, but it's certainly not a replacement for Google or for search in general. And, once you get used to using a tool, it's very hard to kind of like roll back. So this question of like, how early can we introduce them? We're going to have to wait to see some research, right? Like there is very little research or no research that I'm aware of that really answers that question. I'm sure there's a bunch that's in process. And so in the coming 1 to 3 years, hopefully we'll get some like more clear guidance. And there's also, Conmigo's, I assume your listeners are familiar with Conmigo, but for those who aren't, it's basically an LLM tool that is designed to support students almost like as a tutor. But what's really special about Conmigo is it doesn't just give you the answers. So you say, hey, I need an outline for this, essay that I'm writing in history. It's not just going to give you the outline. It's going to say, okay, well, let's walk through step by step what's involved in writing an outline. And so it kind of like plays that role of, a helpful tutor or mentor that doesn't just give you the answer right away.
Is that publicly available, or is it something you can only get through? Oh yeah, what's do you know what the URL of it is? Because I actually never heard of that before.
Oh, it's so Khan Academy built it with.
It's Khan Academy. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That's a really cool idea because that way you're creating a custom LLM that's designed to both teach and provide guidance, right? And that's like it does feel like these LLM things is like when you get to that point about it can't replace Google. We just had this whole thing of with the Gemini controversy, how when you expect an LM to be an answer box for everybody, it's just never going to succeed, right? It can't be a one answer box. So that's where things like Perplexity are kind of interesting. You've got this kind of combination of LLM plus results in some form, but specific designed LLMs also is really interesting, like kind of specifically guided into one thing. So it's called Conmigo is what it's called. Is that right?
Yeah, it's called Conmigo. It's
That's
like $30 a year.
KHAN.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's other companies that are doing this. And one of the school districts that we work with, Anaheim Union Public Schools, has been piloting some of these tools. They're working with UC Irvine to actually do some research. That research isn't done yet, but my understanding is that some of the early data is really promising, right? Because the model of this is looks something like, instead of having a teacher stand in front of the classroom and write a bunch of equations on the board, and like half the kids are kind of just like totally checked out. They're either on their phones, the other half of the kids aren't really following it. And if someone has a question, the whole class is now interrupted, right?
The whole class has that question.
Yeah. Whereas now what they do is that the teacher will have kids kind of break out individually with their AI tutor, work on some problems together with the tutor. The kids are getting that personalized feedback. So depending on how fast or slowly they're sort of picking it up, they're getting kind of like that support. And then the teacher brings the kids together, breaks them into groups, and has them work on new problems together. And
that's very cool.
And that model apparently like dramatically increased engagement. And specifically, this is a story from a math teacher I was talking to. What he saw is the kids who were the worst performing, or the most behind, were the kids who saw where he saw the biggest increase in engagement. So,
oh wow, that's really interesting.
There's reason to be like concerned about like what will happen if these tools sort of just become so ubiquitous that we kind of lose control over, like, we no longer get to answer the question of like, well, should we put this in front of kids because it's just going to be there? So that is trouble. Yeah, it's like exactly. We saw this with social media. We kind of just like felt our way through it, and there was a lot of collateral damage and I think we sort of are continuing to feel our way through it. There's reason to be really excited though about, especially if you're, because you went to private school, if you had, two parents who work in tech or have, master's degrees, you have parent GPT when you go home. Yeah. Like they can help you with their homework.
For
kids
sure.
who really benefit from something like
Dad
Conmigo
GPT was terrible in my household though. It was like, it was GPT 2.1. It would sort of give you a half response and then be just disappointed with you and tell you to go outside.
My Chat GPT was much worse because it would give you a 6-page response and you'd have to figure out what the damn answer was in that 6 pages. That was, everyone's Dad GPT is different, I'm sure.
That's right.
Yeah, my mom GPT, she's a math teacher, so she got very excited when I had math problems that I needed help with, but sometimes it was like I was signing up for a whole nother math class and I was just like, I just need help with that one question. And now it's like 10 p.m. and she's like drawing stuff on the chalkboard.
Alex, well, here's a question for you. Say you're a parent at home listening to this and you have a kid, your kid's school is not leaning into this sort of thing. Do you think they should like advocate for it, or do you think this is going to come to everybody? Like, what is your experience about how this is spreading throughout like all schools, basically?
I think that there's always value in advocacy and in, trying to shift systems. And I think that parents have a really important role there. So I would certainly encourage parents who see opportunities to help their schools kind of like be more on sort of forward footing when it comes to emerging technologies. That's good. At the end of the day, though, like, I think this is one of the most important conversations that parents can have with their kids. It's like, OpenAI and Penn did some research and they were looking at, okay, what are the jobs that are most exposed to large language models, assuming like, I think a straight line progression of LLMs in terms of quality over the next 5 years. And, the careers that have like, so 100% exposure, which means 50% of the tasks, can be basically performed by an LLM today. And these are like business analysts, mathematicians, data scientists, writers, designers. So these,
good jobs. Those are good jobs.
They're good jobs, and they're also not niche. These are like basically the bedrock of knowledge work. Like everybody in business school, like what do you do your first year out of business school? You're like doing financial analysis. You're working with spreadsheets. You're maybe writing a memo to a client or working on a PowerPoint. So I think that what really concerns me is like everybody's sort of focusing on the widgets and like the cool LLMs that are legitimately amazing, right? But the much bigger challenge is like less about how are these tools going to be used in education and more about how is education going to have to transform to meet the needs of what is probably going to be a rapidly shifting workforce, because automation doesn't happen sort of gradually in a straight line fashion. Like capital expenditure in automation is basically like 80 or 90% of it happens in the 12 months following a recession.
Well, what if, according to my YouTube algorithm, we're in it and it's been bursting and it's not a soft landing and I need to buy Italian real estate for $1? What then?
Yeah, if we're already in a recession, well, I mean, the companies are already starting to roll this stuff out. I mean, there's Klarna laid off 700 people. Jamie Dimon says they were able to reduce the time. They were able to reduce the time required for, I think, cash flow management for clients by 90%.
Well, we just had a story today that the EA, the video game company, says they can make themselves 30% more efficient. I think the interesting thing is I don't think we're going to see a recession, and this is where it's going to get weird. The economy is not going to be in recession, but people's are going to lose jobs, and that's where the divide is going to feel strange. And where I think, to your point, Alex, educating people, especially when they're young, giving them an awareness that like this stuff is going to be integrated into everything, you become a much more, I don't want to say valuable employee because that seems so like totalitarian in some ways, but you become a much more valuable part of society if you understand this plus your thing, right, in some form or another. And I feel like that is the future going forward. It's like, how can we kind of bring these two things together?
Yeah, but I mean, I think back to this parents, right? So like, this actually happens a lot where I'll be talking to funders or school administrators, and they'll actually interrupt me in the middle of sort of like my pitch, and they'll be like, "Wait a second, I have a 12-year-old son who wants to go to law school, or my daughter wants to go into graphic design. Like, what should I tell them?" And that's the right question to ask. And I think it's something like the traditional career pathways that we used to assume guaranteed you a prosperous, outcome are going to narrow in many cases, right? So like, yes, it's not that all lawyers are going to disappear, but if there are 10% fewer lawyers employed, then going to a tier 3 law school might not actually make sense if you're going to take on $200,000 of debt. So like, it's more nuanced conversations like that. And like, ultimately, I think the advice that if I was a parent, I'm not, but if I was a parent, what I would say is it kind of doesn't matter what your interests are anymore. Like what you really need to get really good at is like being able to get a job and being able to upskill. So whatever your interests are, figure out how you can use AI to do stuff with that. So if you like shoes, build, launch a sneaker company and like use generative AI to create some like social media ads. Or if you are interested in sports, there's like lots of ways that you can actually, leverage kind of like the skill sets that you're going to need in the job market.
I want to round this one out because we've had concerns on behalf of the students and the parents and the corporations and the podcast hosts, but we do have a special guest today, Alex.
Oh no, really? Are we doing this?
Okay. Well, I saw an eyebrow raise and ears perked up. This is Ollie. This is Gavin's dog, who would like to ask you one quick question to close this out, if you'll indulge.
Sure.
Sniff, sniff. All right, Alex, I've got one burning question for you. Rough.
Okay, yeah, he says that a
How
lot.
are you going to make sure that AI in education doesn't replace the most important learning tool for us dogs? The trusty old tennis ball? Woof.
Okay.
Because let me tell you, no fancy algorithm can ever match the sheer joy and motivation that comes from chasing after that fuzzy little orb of happiness. Sniff, sniff.
Okay.
Okay, Ollie. I didn't know if Ollie was. Oh, he's still going?
No,
Is Ollie still going?
I told Ollie to go outside. I regret that, and I'm sorry. And I may very well just yoink that right out of the episode. But that's what I wanted to ask, Alex.
Do you have anything? You have any thoughts on that, Alex?
Okay, well,
You do not have to answer that, Alex.
I'll try.
Yes, answer.
I'm gonna take a stab at this. Hell, I mean, in a world where we're spending even more time in front of screens and interacting with weird AI chatbots like Ollie, play is probably going to be super important. So that's another thing. If you have kids, like get them away from their screens, because the skills that they're going to need are probably something like how do you just like interact with people.
It definitely is weird. Alex, thank you so much for being here. Where can we go find your work, and where can people who are interested in learning more about AI in schools, where can they go to learn more?
Yeah, go to our website, aiedu.org. And we have all of our curriculum is free, available for download. And especially if you're a school leader or a teacher, reach out to us. We'd love to chat and figure out if there's a way for us to bring AI to your school.
Thank you so much to Alex Kotran for coming on the show. We love AIDU, so go check it out. All right, we have our 5-star reviews for the week. If you send us a 5-star review, we will read it on the show. The first one is from Huggy the Chef. Topic line says, been listening and watching since I met Gavin at OPJ event last year. Shout out Carly Riley. Shout out Overpriced JPEGs. So great, guys. Always funny and entertaining. In my head with some of my friends. Another habit is now using your question that Kevin doesn't like so much anymore, and I get lots of interesting conversations. Here's last night's on the morbid side. It was about AI as the demise of civilization. Continuing, we already don't know how to do many things anymore. With generative AI and coming AGI, we will have to know how to do less and less. Creativity will be squashed. Our intelligence will wane. While in the meantime, we will find a cure for cancer, solve world hunger, and explore the planets followed by the stars. What do you think? You should both be answering this question on a regular basis. Kevin, what do you think? I think we can do quick answers on this because I have a thought.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the answer contradicts itself. Creativity is going to wane. Humans are going to do less and learn less on this path to exploring the cosmos and curing cancer and solving world hunger. They're in contradiction with each other. Because if we're going to do nothing and get nothing and have nothing, well, then how are we going to push these boundaries? It's not like once we solve cancer and explore the cosmos, we'll be out of things to do. I think humans will still find some reason to have idle time and fill it with something exciting.
I'm going to say something that's going to probably weird a lot of people out, but I really do believe this is going to happen. I think we are going to eventually merge with some sort of machine intelligence. And I think that that's probably not as far away as people think. And there will be an organic human life world that will probably exist outside of that. But if you are one of the people that choose to merge, and who the hell knows if this is going to be a good thing or not, the opportunities that will open up to you will be incredible from a creative, all these standpoints. Because you have to imagine, people always talking about this taking away creative jobs. Well, imagine if your creativity was infused with the things that you're seeing coming out of the AI. That feels like where we're going to eventually end up. And I personally, I think I'm kind of interested and excited about it.
You and I were Team Synth. Let's bring it.
Yes.
And these analogs, they're going down. Have fun with your wood planks and your coconuts with painted faces. We're going to be hanging out with our telekinetic powers.
Yes,
that
we
you
are.
can read us and then take us over with an attack.
Yes, you can.
Never mind. Let's move on. Another 5-star review, Gavin, by Hey Drew, the best and wittiest way to stay informed about AI advancements. Now that I really appreciate as a subject. The body is, if you are tired of the same old AI discussions and jokes about how it will kill all the humans, and you want to expand your knowledge on real AI advancements and breaking news, this is the podcast for you. Gavin is excellent. All right. And fans of G4 TV already know Kevin's wit and charm well, and it's on full display here, huh?
Yes,
I was trying to
full
meter
display.
it. I wasn't trying to give you full wit and charm, but there we go.
Yeah.
Also, AI is probably going to kill all the humans. Great way
There
to
you
stick
go.
the landing, Hey Drew.
There you go, Hey Drew. We love it. All right, this last one is really important, Kevin, and I want you to listen up.
No, I
want you to listen to this one very closely, because this is probably the best 5-star review we've ever received.
Saw this. You're going to make me sit through this?
Okay, the title is Unveiling AI, Insights, Humor, and More. This is from McFizzle1997.
Yeah, thank you, McFizzle97.
Gavin Purcell has done it again. After single-handedly taking the floundering Tech TV into the tech juggernaut G4 TV and making Fallon a star, Gavin has taken his golden touch to the podcast world. Gavin's experience translates into an engaging and humorous hosting style that makes complex topics and thoughtful discussion relatable to the masses. Go blah, blah, blah. This is a very nice, and I appreciate it. This thank you, McFizzle. This review definitely came because
Gavin
I was starting to feel bad. I was starting to feel bad.
New AI co-hosts every week. To Matrix dodge my involvement that heavy and hard, McFizzle97, how dare you?
What if this is the spouse of the person that wrote the one last week, and we've got some weird back and forth going on in our podcast reviews? But anyway, thank you so much, McFizzle. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it is a very flattering picture of me, and maybe it just leaves Kevin out. So we'll leave it there. But for right now, thank you so much.
They would be remiss if they didn't point out you can catch Gavin's handsome, boyish charm finally on display in front of the camera instead of behind it. Thank you so much, McFizzle, and thank you to everybody who left a review. Hey, sincerely, folks, each and every week we ask this, but it does actually matter for us. Your impact is immense. If you take the time to subscribe, to click a thumbs up, smack a bell so you get notifications when things go live. Even if you're on Spotify or whatever your podcasting app is, leaving a positive review or 5 stars there, it helps us out. And then, of course, telling people. That is the way that this podcast grows and stays alive. So thank you to everybody for sharing the word about our cast. If you enjoy it, that's the way you can help us out. Just make other people aware that we exist.
Thank you so much. And next week, we're going to be coming to you from New York. It's going to be Kevin and I in a hotel room in New York because we have a fun event that we're attending as the AI for Humans crew. So we will talk a little bit more about that, but we will see you all next time. Bye-bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
folks.